explosion brought beings from the netherworld to Earth. Now normally with these type of storylines, they tend to follow the path as an alien invasion. However, that is not the case in this. Instead of that, the visitors and Earthlings live with each other in harmony, for most cases, because like Earth, the netherworld has its criminals as well. The story follows mostly Leonardo Watch, who is a member of a crime-fighting organization known as Libra, a group of people trying to bring balance to the two worlds by fighting against whatever crime that involves in both worlds. With such a unique and interesting concept, there is one thing that the writers must do, and that is the world building. For such a unique world, I guess they explain as best as they can. Because they explain how most of the powers the characters have, and their backstories are explained fairly well. However, the world building in general, explaining the laws of how things work could have been done better, as there are times where you will have no idea what's going on. And this comes in with the pacing, and the pacing jumps around. Sometimes it's quite fast and feels rushed, and sometimes it just really slows down, and when that happens, it's hard to keep track on what's going on, because the constant changes in pace. One minute they're discussing something, the next they're all suddenly in a rush to save the world. However, despite these problems, the story is very nice and touching, with some thrills here and there, and he has a pretty good ending as well. It's just that it's confusing and hard to follow. There's a lot of characters in Kekkai Sensen, and like a lot of shows with a lot of characters, a lot of them don't get that much development and are kinda there for just being a unique character to introduce in each episode. The main protagonist is Leonardo Watch, who has the power of the all-seeing eyes of God, which is just as it sounds, the ability to let him see anything but at the cost of his sister's eyes. And this brings me to another plot point. Leonardo's sister is his motivation to gain more courage and find out more about his power and use them for his sister's sake. Now there's quite a bit of character development for him as he starts out not trusting people around, but learns that they need him and he needs them to move forward. And you can see the courage he gains by the end of the show. However, one thing that does bug me is, he talks about his sister so much, yet we know nothing about her, and what happened to her afterwards. And she sacrificed her sight and is receiving letters from Leonardo, but we don't know how much of a role she plays besides an outside motivation for Leonardo. Like I said previously, there are a lot of characters in Kekkai Sensen. Too much to go through them all, but there are some that need attention, especially from Libra, Klaus von Reinhardt. At first, Klaus just fills the void for a badass cool personality kind of guy, but as we learn more about him, we'll see why he fights and where does his moral lie. We see him protecting those in the organization and trying to understand the enemy, which I love about his character. There are two other characters that play an important role in the story, and they are twins, White and Black. Now these characters are a key mystery to the overall plot, so I'm not going to spoil anything, but the story just hits you in the feels. Mature and gritty. There are not a lot of colors, and it really highlights the urban city of this alternative New York, which really works for this type of setting. It makes you feel you're right there at that moment, and pair that up with the soundtrack, which I'll go into later. The designs of each character feels really refreshing and unique, and I like how they were able to blend the netherworld inhabitants with the humans, and not making it completely stand out with one another, as they all share this world. The action scenes and the way they use their blood powers is really nice to look at, although it can be a bit simple at times, as in they'll use the blood powers but then a big text of words come up, and it's suddenly explosions. Not really that impressive sometimes. The action scenes are good, but not all of them have the same quality of high animation, and this comes in with a problem with some of the pacing changes when scenes changes. It's hard to follow at times, and some scenes look simpler than the others. I can't finish this review without talking about the soundtrack, because as I said in my top 25 anime of 2015, hands down has the best soundtrack of the year. The combination of the jazz and blues music really add to the Broadway atmosphere of this alternative reality of New York. It's amazing, the vocals and the instrumentals are just beautiful to listen to, and he adds so much to the scene and you can listen to it on its own without needing the world what it was made for. Also, the soundtrack isn't the only thing great about the sound in general. The opening song is wonderful to listen to and the animation is nice. I kind of regret not putting it high on my top openings of the year, but maybe because the ending song was just on a league of its own. I was always looking forward to when the ending song was coming up, because it's an upbeat, catchy tune of a song with awesome animation, which just made it feel like a Broadway spectacle, with the cast of characters dancing to the beat, and it was probably my favorite song of the year. Hands down, best soundtrack of the year. The concept and world of Kekkai Sensen had me really interested, and the characters were really enjoyable to watch because it was fun to see how they interact in this alternative reality. But my enjoyment can only go so far as when I'm trying to understand what the characters are actually trying to pull off. Because some things aren't explained all that clearly and the story tends to jump around, which is kind of confusing. But that doesn't stop from being an enjoyable show, and I haven't even mentioned the comedy of this show yet. It's good comedy that makes you laugh and it's well timed, so it doesn't really distract too much from the actual scenes. And you will be surprised by the amount of comedy in the anime. But I love just listening to the music and especially the ending song. The ending song got me hyped up to watch the next episode just to watch the ending song again. As we draw closer to the end of the review, I give the story an 8. Because despite its pacing problems and some confusion in the story once in a while, the whole entire premise and concept kept me interested for the whole time it was running, and the overall story was touching and an epic thrill ride.
For the animation and sound, I give it a 9 out of 10.
The animation and art style is fine, they did a really good job recreating the alternative New York. The action scenes were great, I wished only they kept a good quality for all of them rather than having some of them be pretty simple. The soundtrack is like by far the best soundtrack of the year. The jazz and blues really add to the Broadway atmosphere of the whole show and are really wonderfully composed. The opening and ending songs are great, especially the ending, which is my favourite song of the year. Heck, probably one of my favourite songs of all time. For the characters, I give them an 8. I love the characters, Leonardo, Klaus and the twins, and I love the character development. Zap was an entertaining character as well, because of the huge cast. I wish we had more time to learn about them, and I wish there was more development, and it was disappointing we didn't learn too much about Leonardo's sister. For my own personal enjoyment, I give an 8. With some confusing and hard to follow story points in the anime, it was hard trying to enjoy those moments when you don't understand what is going on, but for the most part of the show, it is really enjoyable. Just with the concept alone, the comedy is surprisingly clever. It's funny how they use it quite often. I did not expect a show called Blood Blockade Battlefront to be quite funny, but the music was just perfect and I loved listening to it, which made the show. So for the overall Kekkai Sensen, after rounding up, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. It is an anime with a very interesting concept and the world backed up with its wonderful soundtrack that really just shows how much the music can do for an anime. I recommend Kekkai Sensen to those who love to watch supernatural action and those who love to watch crime thrillers. If you want to watch Kekkai Sensen, it is available for legal streaming on Funimation if you have access to it. If you're Australian like myself, it's available on Anime Lab. Well, that's it for this edition of New Anime Review. Like always, if you want to read the written review, link is down below in the description straight to my anime list. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumbs down. If you can't be bothered, go watch another video. With that all said and done, I'm gonna go listen to Sugar's song to Bitter Step again and again and again. Sayonara!